Welcome to Snetterton in Norfolk for the opening rounds of the 2016 BRSCC Alfa Romeo Championship. The cars lining up on the grid for the first race of the season, and with both modified and twin spark class cars here, it should be an absolute cracker. So the field looks like this. Roger McMahon on his own on the front row of the grid with Chris Oxborough behind. No Andy Robertson or Ray Foley due to car troubles. The twin spark class is headed by Tom Hill ahead of Andy Hancock, Stephen Potts and Simon Cresswell. Then Richard Stevens and James Browning on row 3 ahead of Stacey Dennis and Andy Inman. Andrew Burke and Gethin Llewellyn are ahead of Richard Ford and Paul Hollywood, the celebrity chef. Then we have Michael Tideman, Paul Webster, Jeremy Chilton and Mark Hope. So, 2 20-minute races are in store here, and this is how it works on the start. The 2 modified class cars will get away first, and they'll be started by the red lights in the top right of your screen. Revs are going to rise for both McMahon and Oxborough as they get away. Clean start for the pair of them, and now the twin spark class cars will wait for the flag to get them away from the starting gantry. Hill on the left, Hancock on the right, and an equal launch from the front row, but a super getaway from row 3. That's the 91 of Richard Stevens getting a cracking start from 5th position. As the field spreads its way down towards Richie's corner for the first time, they'll turn right. It looks as though it's Tom Hill who gets the whole shot. There's contact between Hancock and Potts as the rest of the twin spark contingent piles its way through. On board with Richard Ford here in the 31. He's in the 146 Ti. Under brakes down for the 180-degree hairpin at Montreal. Trying to look inside of Gethin Llewellyn in the number 2 on the left-hand side. Looks as though he's got the line he needs and a nice clean exit. Back up through the gears again to try and make the move. So up towards Palmer's. It's still Tom Hill in the black and gold number 78 that leads. There was a great duel that was going on for second place between Andy Hancock and Stephen Potts, and I think Hancock won that one out. Indeed he did. And now Potts looks as though he's about to lose third place to the rapid starting Richard Stevens. Stevens has the inside line and gets under brakes for Agostini, makes the move. So that puts Stephen Potts down to 4th, and Simon Cresswell in the bright orange number 6 looks as though he wants to take away one more position, it looks like, into the left-hander at Hamilton's. They still say side by side up towards Oggy's, the right-hander. Potts a little bit later under brakes, and Cresswell makes contact. I don't think that he expected Potts to be that early on the brakes, but he does hang back. So it wasn't intentional. Now back towards Williams. Also in the mix there, you can see just behind is another car in the mix. That's James Browning in the 41 as the field makes its way onto the Bentley Straight for the first time. So your 2 leaders are Christopher Oxborough in the white number 75 and Roger McMahon in the red number 147 who have already swept through your picture. Here comes Tom Hill, followed by Andy Hancock, then Stevens, then Cresswell, who is still following Stephen Potts in 4th place. Then you can see there in the background the 41 of James Browning, and then Stacey Dennis in 6th position. She's in the number 30. Through the bomb hole for the first time. Very tricky right-hander. The field files its way back through towards the end of the first lap of the season. And Hill's got quite a comfortable margin as they curve through Coram and up towards Murray's. And this battle for 3rd place doesn't look like it's going to slow down anytime soon. Simon Cresswell keeping in touch. Simon resides in Radlett in Hertfordshire. It was his first season last year. He managed 2 second places in class at Brands Hatch and Croft. And his is one of a few cars that's been prepared by Bianco Auto Developments as the field heads across to end the first lap of the season. There is the 91 of Richard Stevens holding off the 21 of Stephen Potts. Stevens bumps the curb through the exit of Ritchie's but holds on to the place for the time being. And the way this works in the Alfa Romeo Championship is there are 3 classes that you can compete in. You have the modified class where within reason almost anything goes. You can have anything that permits a wide range of modifications, any sort of chassis of Alfa Romeos. I think the only thing you can't have is a full-blown Alfa 155 DTM car, which would be rather extreme, but that's probably the only exception that you can't have. Then you have the Power Trophy where the cars are decided by power to weight ratio, a set limit that you have to have. And then these cars here, the Twin Spark Cup, which tends to be the most popular out of the 3. And you can have any car that runs the traditional 2-litre twin spark engine. So you usually see a lot of 156s in the mix, but with a selection of different cars like the 166s, 164s and the 147s. So there's always something here that's going to battle as Potts now looks up the inside. This is for 3rd position. Stevens gives him the room. He may look for the cutback on the exit of Oggy's. And that move has also brought the 6 of Simon Cresswell into the mix as well. Cresswell, as we said, in his 2nd season of racing, and it's a great championship for drivers to pick-up racing for the first time. There are some rookies in the field for this year. The two drivers who certainly aren't rookies are Roger McMahon and Christopher Oxborough, where there has been a change for positions. McMahon has got past Oxborough here, so it was the other way around. But somewhere on this lap, Oxborough has had to capitulate and give up the place. It's back through Murray's. Very tricky braking zone at Murray's, so you're almost having to brake and turn at the same time. And what's magnificent about the modified class is that you can have cars of varying ages. Of course, you've got the 147 here, which is a very much more contemporary car, and then the 75, which is actually powered with a supercharger that can live with it on the straights. Back to this awesome battle of the third place that still is raging on between Potts, Stevens and Cresswell. Potts is trying to check out in third place, as there goes Andy Hancock in the number 18. And now trying to close in on this battle that's going to make it a 4-car train for third place is going to be the 41 of James Browning. There he goes. And here is Stacey Dennis. She's the driver from Burgess Hill. This is her 3rd season in the Alphas, 2nd with the car she currently has. She says she's got much to learn and improve, and it's a great proving ground, as we said, for drivers who are just starting out, who can have that opportunity to build their skills, particularly in a car that's almost has a racing pedigree as an Alfa Romeo. And of course, when you get more experience, if you've got the car that's capable for it, you can obviously move across into the higher classes. And we would have had 2 more cars in this race. We would have had the number 9 of Andy Robinson and his bright blue 156, and also the number 3 of the Power Trophy reigning champion Ray Foley this year in a 147. But unfortunately, technical problems have forced them to both miss the start, so hopefully we'll get them for race 2. There's Christopher Oxborough in car 77. His vast experience has been in the championship on and off for several seasons, and made a couple of one-off appearances last year, but this car is pretty much the one that's served him well in his tenure here in the Alfa Romeo Championship. It's great to have him here for this season. Looking further back, this is a battle that's going on between the black and green number 54, that's Jeremy Chilton, just holding off the bright orange of Mark Hope. Now, these two are also in their 2nd season of a championship, as Chilton completely misses the apex but holds on to the place, and that battle I'm sure is going to continue for quite a while. Speaking of which, we've got this duel that's going on now between Stevens and Cresswell. Cresswell really closing up. He looks pretty determined to take 5th position from the 91. So determined, in fact, he may go for it through the middle of Coram, trying to force the issue, but this will put Stevens on the inside if he can hold the place, but Cresswell moving around under braking, but it is enough for him to take the place. That's up to P5 then for Simon Cresswell. Across the line they go once again. Hancock has a few seconds now on Potts, who's broken away. Now that Cresswell has been released from the clutches of behind Richard Stevens, he may get a chance to reel him in again. As Stevens looks again through Richards, he's not done here. He wants to try and get that place back. Such is the nature of a racing driver. You lose a place, the red mist almost descends, and you try and claim it back straight away. Under ropes of Montreal. Cresswell runs deep. Richards Stevens gets it straight back, so obviously the pressure was working. Simon Cresswell completely missed the apex, and Richard said thank you very much, and back through to 5th position he goes. And the Twin Spark Cup tends to usually get a lot of 156s. It seems to be the car of choice. Of course, we've got 156s 1st to 3rd at the moment. Back onto Agostini's once again, under brakes. Another 180 degree hairpin. Snetterton circuit, the 2nd longest in the country after the modifications that were made a few years ago. It does add some extra elements to the circuit, because before it was a much more simpler layout, which is akin to the 200 layout that you get here if you do close off the infield section. It does promote overtaking, it does promote some great racing at the same time, and these guys are certainly experiencing it here in this 1st race of the season. And after this they'll head to Silverstone, and then afterwards they'll be heading to a European round later on in June, where they get to see the mighty Zolder in Belgium, so that will be a fun experience for the Alfa drivers that decide to make the trip across to Europe. Twin Sparks are pretty much as they were then. Tom Hill, the young 19-year-old certainly using this as a great bedding for possibly a running touring cars, should he wish to go down that way. It's a good proving ground for younger drivers. Now then, Cresswell's got a good run on the exit of Nelson's, with the 91, Richard Stevens, determined not to capitulate on this time. He really is going to try and put up a harder fight here, or at least he'll try to, because Simon Cresswell thinks, well, it worked once to look into the inside of the Coram. I might get lucky a second time, but Stevens is wise to that. But he does try and get it stopped. And you heard the tyre squealing. He almost got it wrong, but just about got it anchored up in time to hold the line and the position. There goes Stephen Potts, hugging the pit wall for the shortest possible run down towards Riches. Don't count out James Browning either. Browning, also another driver in his second season, and making the most of his twin spark engine 147. There he is, the cart's running away for there. Stacey Dennis back in 6th or 7th position. Tom Hill with a sizable lead already, and he was a race winner last year. He really did put in a lot of effort, a lot of hard work. Battle for 5th position still rages on. Stevens. Cresswell looking for the move down the inside of Agostini. Gets a good run, but runs way too deep. Gets onto the grass. That will have ruined his tyres so much. In fact, he's ruined it so much. In fact, he's lost another place. That's him down to 6th position. Big move up the inside from Richard Ford as we go back on board. This is against him and Andrew Burke in the 86. There's a bit of contact. I think he's just letting know that he's there. Up the gears again through the left hand at a very awkward angle of Hamilton's. Stays close on the exit, and now heading towards Oggers. Thinks about it again. Looks to make another move on the inside. Burke has got it covered off at the moment. Onboard camera giving you a great perspective of just how the driver works away at the wheel. And the long run now down towards the bridge. 4th gear. Revs begin to rise, the speed begins to build. He has the toe then down towards the complex. Let's see if he can get any closer. Under brakes, he really is going for a lunge here up into Brundle. If he can carry that off to Nelson, we'll have to wait and see. And we'll look back to that battle later on. Now then, Stevens has fallen into the clutches of James Browning here. We said he was closing in, so this should be an interesting fight here. Browning with a good exit from Murray's, and looking to try and capitalise here. And Simon Cresswell has kept himself in touching distance. He's only a couple of seconds away. He'll be watching and observing at this point in time to see if there's any shenanigans between these two. There is Richard Stevens. Got a good start early on, remember, from the 3rd row. And now he continues on. Simon Cresswell in the mix. There goes Stacey Dennis. But Tom Hill really is spread-eagling the field here in number 78. Andy Hancock there in 2nd place is sponsored by Grove and Dean, one of the partners for this season for the Alfa Romeo Championship, along with the tyre company Black & Rounds, who are providing a lot of support this year for the Alfa Romeos, a brand new tyre supply and also a brand new tyre as well, because the field were on Toyo tyres. They've now switched to Yokohama's, so some drivers taking to the new rubber better than others. And this championship as well, it also runs to a similar sort of system with the points as the old scoring system for the British Touring Car Championship, where if you can score enough points in your class, race by race, it does give you the ability to take the overall championship. Now, 2 years ago, that was James Bishop in the Twin Spark Cup, because he won more races than anyone else, and he managed to beat the tally of those in classes higher than him to take the title, hence the reason why he ran number 1 last year. But then Graham Seeger was very dominant in the modified class, and he took the title last year, and consequently Graham unfortunately not here this weekend. I think he's still waiting for parts on the dominant Alfa GTV. Back to Richard Ford, who himself is chasing a GTV. Still Andrew Burke as they come back down towards Brundle and Nelson. This is where we left them a lap ago, and gets a good run through Nelson. straightens the car up again, up to third gear, through the very tricky bomb wall. It really bottoms out at the apex, in the middle of the corner. Now they come back to a long curve of corner. It used to be just a simple long corner and a short straight down towards a chicane at Russell. But it's changed again, so they come back down towards the corner. Richard Ford looking for the inside, almost trying to lock it up under the brakes. There's contact between the pair of them again. He has to let Burke have the run, but if you look at the steering wheel, he possibly may have suffered some suspension damage because that steering wheel is not sitting straight. Ford seems to have made the move stick. I'm not sure what happened to Burke at that point, but he looks to be in close proximity. But someone who is trying to get in close proximity is Christopher Oxborough in the 77. He's fallen away slightly from Roger McMahon. There he is, the leading car in your shot. They've lapped one or two of the Twin Spark class cars in the field, one of which we mentioned was the celebrity baker Paul Hollywood. And he's here this weekend to gain signatures on his racing licence, as he is set to compete in the second half of the season in the British GT Championship aboard an Aston Martin. So he's here at Snetterton to mix it with the regulars and try and get what he needs in order to compete in GTs. But he's certainly enjoying himself in his first ever weekend with the Alphas, and the Championship is very fortunate to have him here, and very welcoming too. Murray's. McMahon still ahead of Oxborough. Does seem as though that McMahon does have the edge chassis-wise in the corners, but on the straights, Oxborough starts to reel him in a little bit more. That's the power of that supercharger on the Alfa Romeo 75. Up towards Riches again. Turning through the right-hander. And back down towards Montreal for the hairpin once more. And out the other side, you can see Oxborough has closed in quite a bit more through the exit of the corner. So the traction that this car gets and the run off the corners in terms of acceleration does appear to be working, because Roger McMahon is doing everything he can in the section here, which should favour his 147, the twisty stuff, through the right left-hander of Agostini's. And accelerating again towards Hamilton's. As we said earlier, this circuit really does have an extra element to it now with the added infield corners. Some tricky angles to test the cars and the drivers. The one place they love is down the back straight. Now they're back with Richard Ford, and that's Andrew Burt looking to the outside, powering his way up towards Ritchie's. Now is he going to get on the brakes of the line? Yes, he does. Almost runs out of road, but gets it anchored up and turned in enough, and that was a very skillful pass from someone who's still carrying a rookie plate on the back of the car. The yellow square with the black cross inside, that's a driver who's only done less than 6 races. So that's a pretty skillful pass for someone who's managed that one. Out of Montreal's back again. You can see the steering wheel, as we mentioned, not sitting well on Richard Ford's car, and that, I think, is a legacy of the contact that he suffered at Murray's about a lap and a bit ago. And here comes our 2 leaders at the top. McMahon looks as though he's turning his way onto the pit straight. Oxborough hasn't closed in too much more at this point, but he should do so down the pit straight here. Last lap board you saw was switching around, so this is one more time around the 300 circuit for your 2 modified class cars. Up into Ritchie's, and what can Oxborough do here? He's got one more tour of the Snetterton circuit in order to try and close in and do something about that. So let's see what he can do as they come back down towards Montreal. Out of Montreal, and there's a yellow flag in the background, and no Christopher Oxborough. So Oxborough has disappeared up at the Montreal hairpin, and we're hearing that it's a stuck throttle. And I think with a car as powerful as that, with a corner as tight as Montreal, that's probably the worst situation that you can have. So that is really unfortunate. Oxborough was having such a great run in second place, keeping Roger McMahon honest. So fingers crossed the car is okay. There's a lot of runoff there at the hairpin. So hopefully he'll be up for race 2, and these two can continue their battles once more. So Roger McMahon then is looking certain to head for an easy victory at this point in time. Of course, Oxford didn't make it too easy for him, but even so, Roger McMahon has got a lot of experience himself. He's got pedigree in the Irish Punto Abarths and the Southern Tin Tops, and has campaigned well in the Alfa Romeo Championship, and he's looking to kick off his 2016 season with a maximum score. You get 20 points for a win, so he'll want to open his account with the full-on 20 points. He's only got a few more corners to go here as he negotiates Nelson, and he'll probably notice in his rear-view mirrors that Oxford isn't there, so he's just simply cruising round towards the finish. And we are set to get more modified cars join us throughout the year. It just seemed as though for this opening race that some drivers weren't able to get their builds ready in time. But out of Murray's for the final time, the checker flag heads aloft, and it is going to be victory in race number 1 of the season for Roger McMahon in the 147. He wins the modified class and the overall race, and you can see in the car he is absolutely delighted. That is a race that he will savour and is absolutely ecstatic for. Well, this is the battle that's still going on for 4th place in the Twin Spark Cup between Browning, Stevens and Cresswell. Cresswell may get a good run here off the corner as they make the drag race down towards the line. But it's Tom Hill that wins that race with Andy Hancock in 2nd and Stephen Potts in 3rd. And looks as though it will be James Browning who holds out for 4th place. But a great way to kick off the season, and this is how they finished. Roger McMahon wins the race from Tom Hill in 2nd place, Andy Hancock in 3rd and Stephen Potts in 4th. And James Browning, Richard Stevens, Simon Cresswell, Stacey Dennis and Andy Inman rounding out the top 9. Of course, Tom Hill winning the Twin Spark Cup with Hancock and Potts on that podium. Then Andrew Burke in 10th with Richard Ford 11th. Paul Hollywood finishes a respectable 12th from Michael Tiedemann, Mark Hope, Jeremy Chilton, Paul Webster and Geffen Llewellyn. And Rachel Thorne is down with your winners.
That first lap was a bit hairy. How did it feel out there, first race of the season?
Yeah, his car is amazingly fast off the line, and we were very close together for the first 4 or 5 corners, and but no, I eventually got ahead, pulled out with 3 or 4 seconds, I would say, and thought nice and comfortable now, and it was good. It was hard work but good. And then he started catching me, and I caught a few back markers, and got in 2 laps to go. He was pretty much back on my bumper again, and then on the last lap, going down into the hairpin, I brake, turned in, thinking, and the next thing I saw him shoot past, and I think his accelerator stuck full open or something. So it was a big relief, and then I just cruised around on the last lap to victory. So I was very happy indeed, I have to say.
Well, congratulations and good luck for tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it. It's great.
Okay, Tom, congratulations first of all on your 2nd. An eventful start to that race. Talk us through what it was happening for you.
Yeah, it was an okay start. I think I could have probably performed better on the initial launch. The first corner I got a little bit sideways. I saw Andy, who was behind me, was looking to make an opportunity of that. The second corner into the hairpin, he got a good run into that corner. Fortunately, just about managed to fend him off. So yeah, it was a challenging start for me for sure.
Did you spend the rest of the race looking in your rearview mirror?
Absolutely, yeah, you always do. I mean, Andy is a great driver, so I was always taking reference points to him to see what my performance was relative to him. I think also I'd like to add actually that just a big thank you to Bianca Auto Developments, because the car for that race was really, really excellent. It performed really well, and all weekend, I mean, it's not missed a beat.
Good, so how do you feel now with the rest of the weekend ahead and the season just opening up?
Yeah, I mean, it's great starting the new season. Rest of the weekend, we've got 1 more race tomorrow. So yeah, that will certainly be challenging. I know where I what to work on, which is good for me. So yeah, it'll be a new challenge I'm looking forward to.
Well, let's pray the weather stays more of the same tomorrow then for race 2.
Yeah, thank you.